When we talk about gangster movies, Japanese gangster films aren't the first that comes into our mind. But the Japanese gangster movies are unique and amazing. So today we're going to suggest some of our picks for the best Japanese gangster movies ever made. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. We're non-Hollywood. We bring suggestions from across the globe.
でも本当に切れたら日産の方が怖かったぜ。
Helldogs. A ex-cop whose wife was murdered by the criminals, he accepts a dangerous operation to infiltrate the Yakuza organization. But as he grows in rank in the organization, he develops a close friend. Now our lead must make difficult choice between friendship and his duty. As time passes by, it becomes unclear to the cops whether he is working undercover or he himself became a gangster. What follows in this operation and how did he transform is the story all about. If I reveal more than this, it will be a spoiler for you.
兄貴、こいつらもやっちゃいますか。君声。
High and low. If you like stories like Tokyo Revengers or Windbreakers, this film follows similar story. Where the city is divided between 5 biker gangs, each gang has their own territory and their rules. Together they are known as SWAT. When an external gang wanted to take control over the city, they start creating conflicts in between the 5 gangs. Now the leaders must decide whether to fight among themselves or bind together to defeat much more powerful external enemy. The soul of the film is gang wars with brilliant action. Brother, this film is a Japanese-American gangster movie which follows Yakuza, a smart and ruthless Yakuza whose crime world in Japan has collapsed after a gang war. With no place left in the underworld, he reunites with his brother Kin, who lives in US. Kin is a gangster in a small gang in US. When Yakuza meets his brother, he starts transforming a small gang into a powerful syndicate with the help of his experience. How did they expand the gang to new territories, taking over rivalry gangs, and how did they fight back the big rival gangs to build up a new empire is the story all about. The way they fight other gangs through all the scheming and betrayals, and how did they grow with the ruthless functioning is the most interesting part about this movie. Since the film takes place in US, most of the dialogues are in English. Crew Zero. If you enjoy high school gangster movies, then Crew Zero is for you. Set in a dangerous high school known for its violence, in this school the film follows Genji, who is son of a Yakuza boss who wants to prove his worth to his father. He sets a goal to become the leader of the school. But that isn't easy, because already the school is divided into multiple gangs with extremely good fighters. Now Genji recruits new members into the gang and starts fighting one gang after another. But beating them isn't easy, with extremely good fighters in the rival gangs. This film is all about action, action and more action. The Blood Wolves. If you're a fan of movies like Departed, then this film becomes a must-watch for you. Set in the 1988 Japan, the story follows Hyoka, a young detective who is assigned under Detective Ogami, a legendary cop who controls the Yakuza world with the law and sometimes goes beyond the law. When these two detectives starts investigating a missing person, they gets entangled in middle of a brutal gang war between two rivalry gangs. The deeper he goes into the investigation, the more he begins to question who the real criminals are, the Yakuza or the police themselves. With the gang leaders preparing for all-out war and dangers surrounding two detectives, they must decide whether to follow the law or whatever it takes to stop the bloodshed. A Family. This film is a dark, poetic take on gangster genre. It tells the story of Kenji, a boy who is adopted by the leader of a small Yakuza family, builds a life as Yakuza in a crime organization, protecting the family that adopted him while falling in love and dreaming of normal life. But due to a new anti-Yakuza law, Kenji is sent to prison for years and the crime organization is destroyed. Years later, when he is released, he finds that his Yakuza world is destroyed and the girl he loved now has a child and refusing to trust him. He tries to find a job in order to prove his lover that he's a changed man. But with no education and criminal background, it becomes extremely hard for him to find a job and start his second life. Meanwhile, even though he wants to run away from all the violence, Kenji's past enemies return. What happens after that? How did he deal with his enemies and did he start his second life is the story all about. Outrage. If you are familiar with Japanese films, at least once you might have heard about Outrage. This gangster action film is a classic and it also has 2 more sequels in the franchise. Our lead, Otomo, works as a mid-level gangster in a Yakuza syndicate. One day his boss orders our lead to provocate the rivalry gang members. In this process of provocation, he understands that his boss is using him to create conflicts inside the syndicate, using his own man as pawn in order to eliminate rivals and strengthen his control over the syndicate. After discovering this truth that his boss is using him as a pawn, Otomo goes into all-out war with the entire syndicate. What follows is a brutal gang war with betrayals and extreme violence.
What?
'Sonatine'. This film is one of the greatest gangster film of all time. It follows a veteran gangster, Murakowa, who's tired of all the gang wars and endless violence. One day, his boss orders Murakowa and his man to travel to Okinawa to settle a conflict between 2 Yakuza gangs. However, the Okinawa gang conflict is actually a trap laid by the boss to eliminate our lead and his crew. Murakowa, along with his men, survives and escapes the trap and starts hiding while enjoying their peaceful lives. But escaping from the Yakuza profession is not that easy. The shadows of Yakuza must be eliminated to survive. The film shows the reality of being gangster and its cost.
でも本当に切れたら日産の方が怖かったぜ。
Hana-bi. Also known as Fireworks, this film tells the story of a police officer, Nishi, whose wife is at a deathbed with very little time left. When he was visiting his wife, his colleague was shot and paralyzed in a firing incident. Blaming himself for not being available, Nishi resigns with guilt. On the other hand, Nishi has borrowed some money from the Yakuzas, and now they are demanding that money. In order to settle that, in a desperate attempt, Nishi acts as a cop and robs a bank. With that money, he helps his colleague's family and settles the debt. But the problems doesn't end there. When Nishi goes on a final drive with his dying wife across Japan, the Yakuza members start chasing him even after settling the debt. They find him as an easy target and demands more money. On the other hand, the police are chasing him for the robbery. With both closing on him, what will happen and how does these events lead to brutal killings is the story all about. If I reveal more than this, it will be a spoiler for you. This movie has fantastic screenplay which almost feels like poetry.